Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Amazing Moments podcast. I'm your host, Blake Lawton, and today I'm joined by my co-host, Stephen Edvi.
How's everyone doing?
In today's episode, we're going to be talking about how Stephen and I accidentally became influencers and the story of how we met. All that and so much more, so stay tuned. Thank you so much for joining me here to record the podcast.
Blake, thanks for having me. It's an absolute pleasure to be here. I'm super excited to start this adventure with you.
Yeah, I mean, I've been meaning to do a podcast now for what feels like absolutely forever, and just to be sitting here, like across the microphone from you, and just like doing it, this in itself is an amazing moment.
Absolutely insane. And craziest part is that we only met 2 weeks ago, right? And you've had so many other opportunities to co-host with so many other amazing people, and all of a sudden we just randomly meet, accidentally become influencers, and now here we are 2 weeks later, sitting in your living room recording our first podcast.
Yeah, and that's honestly the story that we want to tell today. And Stephen already kind of went into it. We accidentally became influencers on the same day that we met as two totally complete and random strangers. So, I'm going to let you, Stephen, kind of dive into the story from your perspective, and then we'll get going with that.
It's been absolutely unreal. I mean, most people, they think when they come across strangers, they think stranger danger, or why should I trust a stranger? That's something unconventional. That's not safe. But Blake and I, we've really been against this lifestyle, and we're going to show you basically why. So 2 weeks ago on Saturday, I had no plans, and we happened to be in a mutual Facebook group, and Blake posted something along the lines of fireworks adventure. I have one spot. Say yes. 2-hour notice. And
was it even 2 hours? I feel like it was like 45 minutes or something.
I think it was like an hour and a half. Like it was pretty short notice.
It was really a post of like, you can do this thing, but you have to come and do it right now.
Yeah. And by absolute coincidence, I happened to open up that Facebook group right when Blake posted, so I was the first person to comment. And then I sent a private message to Blake, but then he ghosted for the next 45 minutes, and it was the longest 45 minutes of my life because time's ticking, and he's like, it's at 7 o'clock, and like, it's 5 o'clock, it's 5:15, it's 5:30, and I'm like, is this gonna happen now? And then out of the blue, he responds, and he says,
yeah, in my defense, I had something else I was doing at the time, but I responded back, and I was just like, awesome, thank you for saying yes. Can you be at this place at this time? And let's go, let's do it. Once again, I had never met Stephen before in my life. I had never heard of him before, and we were gonna meet and go on this excellent adventure together.
Exactly. So I got hustling bustling and made my way all the way to the amusement park known as La Ronde here in Montreal, and that's where I met Blake for the first time. I had absolutely zero idea really what we were going to do when I knew that there were fireworks at La Ronde, and so I thought maybe that he had these possibly these passes just to go and watch the fireworks from maybe a better view. But when I get there, he gives me this La Ronde sponsored bag and says, by the way, we're here on media passes for this company called What's Up Montreal, and we're going to be documenting the fireworks for them today. And I'm like, holy crap, I just became an wow.
But and that's it. So I had been given from a friend of mine earlier in the day his media passes. He unfortunately was unable to make it that night, so he offered me his media passes to come to the event and asked me to take a couple pictures and videos and send it for him for his Instagram page and his community. And so I agreed to do so. But the problem was there was 2 tickets and there was only one of me. And I woke up that morning not knowing what I was doing with my day and actually thinking to myself, wait, nobody I know is really in town. Like, who am I going to go with anybody? Like, he gave me these tickets, and suddenly I had 2 hours to figure out who was in town, who was I going to go with, and what. So I decided to throw caution to the wind and just invite a total random stranger along on this adventure. And yeah, honestly,
what an adventure
it became. Yeah. So we obviously went in with the premise of these media passes, as Stephen alluded to before, and the media passes were we had in our bags, like our media kit. We had free food. We had kind of the normal hookup you get when you're coming in as a member of the media to one of these events. But we also had access to the kind of right dead center, prime location viewing for the La Ronde International Fireworks Festival, which is, first of all, just kind of an aside, holy crow, was that impressive, the fireworks from within the park.
It was beautiful.
So if you're ever in Montreal, just kind of going into, like, seeing the fireworks is cool from all over the place in the city, but there's nothing quite like experiencing it from within the park. And this is like a genuine opinion, like, I was blown away. And my background a little bit is, I'm a big theme park enthusiast. I've visited all 12 Disney parks around the world. I used to be a cast member at Walt Disney World. And so I've seen many a fireworks show in my life. And my jaw had dropped by the end of just day one. And that actually wasn't even the end of our adventure. And that's a little bit more.
It was just absolutely unreal. Like, I was born and raised in Montreal, and I've seen the fireworks as they come every year in July, and they have them twice a week throughout the month of July. And so I've seen probably at least 40 fireworks shows of the same fireworks show in Montreal, and I've never really seen it from this close. Like, we're literally 100 meters away, and these things are just blowing up in your face, and it was so beautiful because you actually get the music as well. And when you're far away, you don't hear the music. You kind of just see, the fireworks explode. And yeah, that's beautiful and stuff, and you could get nice pictures. But when you actually see the amount of work that goes into it with the music and how it's synchronized, it just makes the experience so much more amazing and beautiful. And documenting this was an absolute pleasure. And when I woke up on Saturday morning, I had no friggin' idea that by the end of the day, I would have a media pass around my neck, I would have a new amazing friend, and I would be documenting these fireworks for Instagram.
Yeah, and so this is kind of getting to the point where we say we accidentally became influencers, because it didn't end there. Our story actually just began there. Throughout the night, we were documenting the event. We were taking videos, and I was sending it back to my friend Patrick's What's Up Montreal Instagram page for him to reshare with his followers. And Stephen and I were taking videos. We're laughing. We're just having an amazing time and bonding in a way that spontaneity kind of fosters bonds and friendships. And at the end of the night is when we became influencers, and really we accidentally became influencers because we spoke with the media coordinator for La Ronde, and she actually invited us back, Stephen and I, back to come and film and document and post from every single fireworks all season long. I think it's like almost 10 shows.
Almost 10 shows, and it's absolutely crazy because at first glance, when we met her, she was kind of just like, so who are you two guys? Because she was obviously the one who gives out all these media passes, and she recognized everyone who gives the passes to, but we were kind of like just handed them off. So I'm assuming the whole night she was kind of just like staring, who are those two guys just goofing off and just having a great time? Like,
who are those guys with the media passes that I don't recognize in places they're not supposed to be? Like,
yeah. And so her name is Karina. She's an
huge
amazing person.
Huge shout out to Karina. Honestly,
fantastic. Amazing to now work with.
Yeah.
And just an overall awesome human being.
Yeah.
And within just 5 minutes of meeting and talking to her, she gave us the opportunity to come to every single fireworks show, not just on behalf of What's Up Montreal, but to be there ourselves and take videos, and for her to reshare for all of La Ronde's Instagram, which is absolutely crazy to think about because they have over 23,000 followers, and that is just an unreal amount of people to me.
Yeah, and admittedly, we're basically nobodies when it comes to like being influencers or people online, and so that whole event, the way this all went down, really just kind of emphasizes to me the power of open-mindedness and just kind of being willing to accept these amazing moments that happen in your life. And it's moments like this. Now, this might be an extreme example. This might be like a very, very broad example. But this is, in essence, what this podcast is about. It's about talking about these times when you've put yourself out there, when you've done something different that really creates and fosters these amazing moments that give you stories to tell. And so we're going to share our stories because both Steven and I have tons of stories to share. But we're going to share our friends' stories. We're going to bring on guests. We're going to hear your stories. We really just want to hear the stories of these amazing moments that happen in life. And it just happens to be that this all started by Steven and I accidentally becoming influencers.
Blake, you absolutely nailed it on the head. What it really boils down to is putting yourself out there. And we can't wait to share all our stories with you and get more people on the show to share their stories as well, with the motivation to not just share these stories with you so that you have the enjoyment of listening to these stories, but to then motivate you to then yourself get out there and live your own amazing moments so that we could then hear your stories after you experience them.
Yeah, and so getting back into our story again, I just wanted to ask you, Stephen, from your perspective in your mind, when you first saw this Facebook post and you said yes, what was going through your head at that time? Like, where was your mind at? What was your thought process?
I was literally sitting on my couch in my living room. I was reading a book called Unfuck Yourself. And this book is essentially about get out of your comfort zone, stop going down the path that everyone wants you to do, defeat yourself as your own, like, you could be your own
like worst enemy,
exactly, as your own worst enemy, and essentially un-F yourself, get out there. And it was just so beautifully coincidental how I just like finished reading this book, and as I put it down, I opened up the Facebook group, and then there's a Facebook post by this stranger named Blake Lawton who says Fireworks Adventure, and I just knew that all I had to say was yes. I had no expectations, I had no idea what was going on, but I just really, really wanted to do it. And looking back on it, I am so glad I said yes because of this amazing moment that became, and not just one amazing moment that we lived, all the other amazing moments we've lived since then. At the time of recording this podcast, we've seen 2 fireworks shows now. One, it just keeps getting better with the people we keep meeting, and the moments multiply.
And exactly, they're adding up. Like, we're recording this podcast now, and in just a few minutes after we're done recording this podcast, Steven and I are grabbing our stuff and going right back to La Ronde to go watch another fireworks show, because this one moment has fostered into many other ones and many other experiences in life, and that snowball effect is taking over.
It's absolutely unreal. Like, I still can't believe that we are doing this, because to me, especially when I explain this to some of my friends and my family, and they're like, why? The first thing is it's either they go, that's amazing, or they go, why? And the reason they ask why is not because of they don't understand. It's mostly because they're like, why you? Because we're just normal people.
Yeah.
But that's part of the point we're trying to come across, is you don't necessarily have to have all these accreditations and be this, Cannes Film Festival amazing person to be invited to these things. Is by putting yourself out there, you can go on the same amazing adventures that anyone goes on that you see who is potentially famous or is accredited. That all is possible because at the end of the day, it boils down to we are normal people. And by putting yourself out there, you are exposing yourself to these amazing adventures, and you just have to say yes to go on them.
Yeah, and that's it. And not everyone is going to be free. Not everything you're going to want to do or you're going to want to try, they're going to come back and, media passes are going to fall into your lap. But this is just the story of how we met. Between Steven and I, we have, I don't want to say, thousands of moments, but probably hundreds of stories to tell. Of other times when we weren't given anything for free, but we put ourselves out there and we went and looked, went after what we wanted, and these amazing stories, these amazing adventures, these amazing moments followed. And realistically, this is the heart of what we want to talk about, and these stories to share. And this is a great introduction, and I think there's no more fitting co-host for the podcast that I've always wanted to do than somebody who, not even 2 weeks ago, because we hadn't even met yet 2 weeks ago, a complete stranger, like an absolute complete stranger 2 weeks ago, now sitting across the microphone from me, about to share our stories about the amazing moments we've had in our lives and really explore and communicate with you guys the amazing moments you've had in yours.
Now let's dive back into the story, actually. So the reason we felt so influencer in this whole experience was walking around with these media passes. People look at you like you're an influencer because, they ask themselves, who are these people? Do I know these people?
Yeah, like
Have I seen these people?
It gives you that validation.
Exactly.
This guy's important.
Yeah.
Let's see what they're doing.
And then we tried to milk it just like a real influencer would do. We walked to the most popular ride in the park and we tried to convince them to, let us skip the line, obviously to no avail because a media pass doesn't mean you're God. But we tried anyway, just like any influencer would do. And it just felt really awesome having that experience and trying all these things that normally aren't possible if you don't have this opportunity in front of you to be an influencer. And we were, at the end of the day, just trying to get the best content out.
And not only like trying to put the best content out, I think from like a perspective of like we need to because it's our job. Because once again, there was absolutely no requirement on this day when we went for us to do anything besides send the 1 or 2 pictures and videos to be reshared. But Steven and I both bonded over leaning into this media pass thing so hard, where we were like trying to get the best camera angles, doing selfie videos, like he said, trying to push it a little bit too in terms of what the media pass got us, shaking hands with people we didn't know who they were. Like we fully dove headfirst into this, and by the end of the night, it paid off.
Yeah, it was absolutely fantastic, and it was meant to be a one-night thing, but then it ended up extending into the whole month. And when I woke up on Saturday morning, like, if you would have told me that by the end of the night, you will have been unofficially pretty much contracted to take Instagram videos for all the Laron fireworks, I would have told you, no, that's not possible. But that goes hand in hand with pretty much all the other amazing moments I've had.
Yeah, and like, I mean, I swear, I'm going to be talking about this probably for ages. I'll be like 60. Remember that summer? I remember that summer when I accidentally became a social media influencer. Meanwhile, social media's died like 10 years ago. I got to go to all the fireworks shows at La Ronde with this random guy I met off the internet.
But that's just the crazy part of it. It was so random, but it was so amazing.
Yeah.
But you can't write this in advance. And I think that's my favorite thing about all the amazing moments I had, and especially this one, is you cannot come up with this. You cannot write this. You cannot even write a script for a movie about this. And as much Hollywood you'll try, you just cannot pull this off. It kind of just happens.
Exactly, and you just have to let it happen. You can't try to script this, and that's kind of what happened. This is all unscripted. What's happening even right now in this podcast is unscripted. We're living this moment as it happens.
Exactly. We're just going for it. Like you said before, head first. No expectations, but we're having an awesome time. And for us, that's how we want to live our lives right now, is we're just having a lot of fun and creating all these amazing moments, because when you're thinking back on your life, those are the moments that you're going to remember. Obviously, you'll have your ups and downs, but at the end of the day, you will have those amazing moments that really stick out. And to me, I just want to have the most amount of amazing moments like that possible. And at the same time, I want to hear your amazing moments too, because then we could compare, we can see how they were same, different, and
exactly, and how they manifest themselves. Well, we are getting towards the end of our podcast here, so let's maybe talk a little bit about that more. And Steven, maybe give us a preview of just some stories or some things you might talk about in future episodes.
So obviously the big one, the elephant in the room is the LA Marathon road trip with Yes Theory story.
Yes, and I'm so looking forward to talking to you about that.
I'm looking forward to that as well. Other one we have is random girl from Indonesia conquering her fears the first time she's visiting in Montreal. That also just happened 3 weeks ago.
Yeah.
That was an amazing story. The Strangers and Dreams project, where the gist of it was that we walked into the public, found 10 strangers, and then made their dreams come true.
Yeah.
So all these stories, I'm super excited to share them. And Blake, tell me some of your stories that you'll share with me.
Well, I think I mentioned it earlier, but the visiting 12 Disney parks around the world, and so as much as that's a very commercial thing, like a paid for thing, to me those are moments that have an importance in my life, and I'm super excited to be sharing those with you. But there's also the time where I ended up on a volcano in Guatemala because I just decided to go for the weekend. Or making new friends with people who just came back from North Korea. Like, there is so many things to talk about for myself as well.
I'm really excited to share all the stories, and I'm really excited to share them with all of you listening out there, and hopefully motivate yourselves to share the stories with us, because we want to hear your stories too.
Yeah, and I can't stress that enough. So as the podcast goes on, and hopefully people start listening and they start engaging with us, and we'll be able to start sharing some of your stories as well, and not just your stories. We are from time to time going to invite other guests on. I have a few in mind that have some really awesome stories, and they're not necessarily tales of travel and these different things, and I don't want to limit the podcast to that. We're going to talk to people who have stories about those moments when their entrepreneurial dreams came true, or that defining moment that they decided, no, I'm going to quit my job and do something completely different. So it's really at the end of the day, anybody who has a story to tell relating to a moment in their life that defined their life. Like I said in the past and in the description of this podcast, moments can be both big and small, but at the end of the day, they're going to change who we are in a minute, over our life, through a moment. The time period doesn't have to be fixed, but it's just, they're defining moments. They're these things that change us as people, be it long-term or short-term.
I'm really excited. I'm sure you're excited too, Blake.
You have no idea.
We're super excited to finally start this, and I just honestly can't wait to hear all the stories and to share everything, because to me, it's just going to motivate me to go out and accomplish all these other amazing moments.
Exactly. Well, guys, like I said, we have run out of time for today's episode. But before we go, Steven, how can people get in contact with you?
I do have an Instagram at Edviz, that's EDVIIZ. Shoot me a DM. Blake, how can we get in contact with you?
You can find me on Instagram as well, at Blake Lawton, that's BLAKELAWTON. Or, of course, the links to both of our Instagram handles will be down in the show notes for today's episode. Thank you guys so much for tuning in to this episode of the Amazing Moments podcast. I've been your host, Blake Lawton, joined by Steven Edvi, and we'll talk to you guys next time.